Hey, my name is Riddle, and you may or may not be a subscriber to my channel. And often when I make videos that are outside of my gardening or mushroom hunting or utilitarian videos, I wonder why I'm even bothering. It's like a whisper to a scream, but I have, I believe, a really valuable opinion. And I often, when I do make videos that have to do with social issues or politics, I base my opinion and my story always in life experience, because I think that that grounds my or gives more value to what I share with the world. This being said, my opinion is often interpreted, and especially these days, as harsh or judgmental or, I grew up in a time that no one made excuses for us. You were taught to work hard and then work harder, and that the people that I came from, life was basically suffering, and then you died. uh, I grew up with alcoholic parents who had the tools and the intelligence to change their lives, but because of generational abuse and neglect combined with the disease of addiction, they were never able to pull it together, and they passed their misery on to their children and other people, which is a pretty normal chain of historical events with more people than not, I'm learning. The reason I'm talking about all this, it's going to get more interesting. You're going to just hold on, please. Just be patient. Recently, in my feed, there's been a channel that was created out of Texas, and the channel highlights parents and people's story who have lost children and family members to fentanyl poisoning. And it's horrific and it's tragic. And it's not just, they're not just addicts. Sometimes they were just kids doing what I did, kids just like taking that one pill to be cool. Or some of these people put it in their drinks. They weren't even drug users. And then you have your circumstances of addiction. But even with the circumstances of addiction, many times these people didn't understand that they were getting fentanyl. And there are dozens and dozens and now hundreds and thousands of people around the world, but especially Americans, that have been killed by either the pharmaceutically approved drugs from our government and doctors, or now fentanyl. Fentanyl is now the big scary one. And unlike the opioid crisis, now, because of the cartels, the drug cartels, often you don't even know if or when you're getting fentanyl, because they make dummy drugs that look like ecstasy or a Percocet, or they basically are just turning everything into fentanyl. Okay, so we have this pronounced channel out of Texas, and all these dozens and dozens of parents telling their story about how they lost their kids, and it's painful and it's tragic. But I'm here to tell you, I asked my friends and I asked my family the other day, I said, I grew up in a time, I'm a gay man, and I grew up during the AIDS epidemic, and we lost generations of incredible people to that disease because because we were a minority that was looked down on, there was no help from the government. There was no leadership. We were left to die with what they perceived was a sinner's disease, along with people dealing with addiction. And when I was talking to my family and friends about the fentanyl crisis, I said, I wonder at this point how many people we've lost and what the numbers are population wise compared to how many people we lost during the AIDS epidemic, the AIDS crisis. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've done a lot of protesting in my life, and I never regretted exercising that American right. And there wasn't one time that I didn't feel passionate enough to go to the streets that that issue was not addressed eventually. So I never felt it was a waste of time. And when I look at all these parents, and all these people making these videos on YouTube about the story, I'm just trying to tell you, you may think you're bringing awareness to this, but it's really just creating a form of cheap entertainment for people who like to see suffering. Because basically that's what social media is about. We watch people suffering, we watch the homeless situation, we watch drug addicts to feel better about ourselves. Let's be real. Thoughts and prayers is the motto of America. And thoughts and prayers don't do anything to create change. So, yeah, sure. I'm sure it feels cathartic. I'm sure you feel like you're bringing awareness to your family member's story by telling everyone how wonderful they were, or how they were mistakenly poisoned and now they're dead, and everyone's supposed to stay away from fentanyl. But it is not going to work. What we need to do, what you need to do, is get angry and get to the streets. You need to follow the exact or similar blueprint to what we did during the AIDS crisis. You need to organize, and you need to start protesting, and you need to start harassing the government, and you need to start going crazy. And it's the only thing people understand anymore is extreme action. And a YouTube video is not extreme action. A YouTube video is too easy. It's too easy. And it's too easy to forget about. But if a couple million people showed up in Washington and basically wouldn't leave until the government said, yes, we're going to kick China in the nuts to stop them from allowing fentanyl to be produced and sent to the United States. Right now, China is using fentanyl as a bargaining chip, a political bargaining chip. Today, I heard that in Beijing, they went from saying they're going to do something about it to them saying, well, maybe, because now they're going to use it as a political tool, because historically, different countries have used drugs to weaken a population of people. Look up the Opium Wars. This is where the British used opium to crush and get the population of Chinese addicted to opium, so they had, it was easier for them to conquer and to manipulate. And there's a very dark history about the Opium War. And it just like, history does repeat itself, and humans aren't these good-natured, benevolent beings that learn from their mistakes. We often use the same tactics over and over again in regards to power and war. And this is a war. It's a war. Fentanyl is, and just like the opioid crisis, it is a direct attack that does not have prejudice, and it is destroying a generation, several generations of Americans. And it really seems to be specifically going for the jugular of the middle class and the working class. And I think it's one of the reasons we're starting to see this huge for the first time since probably the beginning of our country, where we're having, instead of having several classes of people, the middle class is disappearing. This being said, look at what the gays did during the AIDS crisis. Look at what people did during the HIV/AIDS crisis. Look how they created organizations like ACT UP, and created slogans like "Silence equals death," and they had T-shirts. And when they organized, when they got together to socialize, instead of just socializing, they were addressing what can we do next? How can we take it further? What politicians do we need to reach out to? What celebrities can get behind us? What do we need to do? What outrageous thing are we going to do next so the government hears us, so the government does something, because our people are dying and nobody cares. And once again, parents, brothers, sisters, grandparents, our people are dying and nobody cares. The government needs to stop China at any cost, because China has full control over what is exported and what is produced in that country. And we also have to make an actual war that's worth the money, unlike what we've dumped into war, the past several wars and current wars, and dedicate that same amount of fervor and cash to stopping the cartels. It is a war on drugs. It is a war on drugs. And that also means that the idea of decriminalizing drugs, from an aspect of allowing people who deal drugs or transport large amount of drugs, isn't going to work. I say get all Duarte with this stuff, punishable by death, depending on what the amount is and what the drug is. The only way you're going to stop this is to get as serious about it as other countries would if their people were dying. But a bunch of broken parents on the internet telling us about how lovely their children were and how they were the life of the party and how they were just so full of love and so funny is not going to do anything. Your videos have no value except for to commiserate with other people who've lost people to this fentanyl crisis, and to further exploit the issue without any kind of action. You need to study how movements are created. You need to get some great leadership, and you need to organize a full-on assault on our government so they will take action. Because obviously, look at our homeless population. Look at what happened, because money is always king with the opioid crisis. I mean, what do we learn from that? What do we learn from that? If now it's just being tumbled into a whole nother drug crisis, we didn't learn anything from it because there wasn't a high enough cost to the people involved. And the cost has to come with a really, really high price, a price of cash, a price of freedom, the price of life, perhaps. Because in desperate times, you have to take desperate measures. It's the only thing that men understand. It's the only thing that men understand. People freaked out, and I'm not condoning this, but the Black Lives Matter movement, the reason they started taking action or pretending to take action or took any notice at all is because suddenly there was violence and personal property being destroyed. If that wouldn't have happened, they would have been like, oh yeah, those silly idealistic kids, what do they know? Sad, But that doesn't say anything about the people who were concerned about themselves and their peers and their families being murdered. It just says how sad that humanity has not evolved any further than that we only understand extreme methodologies and violence in order for an issue to get any attention. So that's what I have to say. Fentanyl is horrific. Drugs are horrific. I don't pray. I don't do thoughts and prayers, but I honestly are putting all my hope into science that very soon they're going to have different treatments that can literally change the disease of addiction in the human brain. And this is actually happening. So it's not a pipe dream and it doesn't involve drugs. There was an amazing 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago where they're using pinpoint ultrasound to literally change the brains of addicts to literally reverse the disease of addiction. So the technology is coming, that and gene therapy. But until then, parents, don't just make a video. Organize and get angry, get your friends angry, get your neighbors angry, and let's march to Washington. And not just once. Let's create a problem. The only thing government understands is what hurts them financially and what disrupts peace. We take power through how we spend our money, how we vote, and when we make something incredibly public. So this can't be a one-time thing. A one-time thing is a novelty, like the Women's March. It's a novelty. Women still aren't making the same amount as men. They're still being assaulted with their right to choose about health and everything else. Just a novelty. But this could be something great if we get some real leaders in place that can come up with some hardcore, both temporary and long-term solutions, and we make things really uncomfortable for the entities that I listed. And that's what I have to say about fentanyl and how we need to deal with the fentanyl crisis. Thanks for listening. If you like my message, if you have anything to add to it, I would love to hear it. I think it's okay to disagree. Our country was supposed to be based on diversity. And 3 times now in the last 3 to 5 years, I saw my friends and family through social media afraid to speak up about certain issues for fear of being fired, rejected, aggression. If you're one of those people that are trying to silence people because you don't have the solid enough argument or debating skills or intellect to talk about things and hear other people's opinions and share your own opinion in an intelligent, logical, calm manner, well, you're not very American. You're literally turning this country into something that is much more like communism. People don't realize that when they throw around the word socialism or communism, it's not about getting everything for free. It's about, well, look at the world. Look at China, and you'll have a really great idea of why it's important for us to be able to talk about things and to question governments and to be able to separate a government's actions from a religion or a people. We shouldn't be able to be forced into biased situations and not even be able to talk about it, because that is the opposite of democracy, and it's a very slippery slope, and it's very dangerous. Take care of yourselves. Bye.